How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Down to Earth with Kristian Harloff. This is our Monday through Friday UAP news channel. We try to give you a update on what's going on in the world of the phenomenon. And one of the things we've been covering on this channel is that Intelligence Authorization Act. It's been going around. It's the Schumer and Rounds thing. More people getting involved in information to be out there. What's going to pass? What's going to get shot down? Well, there is a congressional update. This is broken down by Dean Johnson. Let me read some of this to you, and then we'll have Pavel come in and talk about it with me. Here is the actual revised, a good breakdown here by Dean Johnson. Here it is. Congressional UAP UFO Update, Revised Intelligence Authorization Act. On July 31st, 2024, Senators Mark Warner and Mark Rubio, respectively, the chairman and ranking Republican on the Senate Select Committee of Intelligence, filed a revised version of the fiscal 2025 Intelligence Authorization Act, including revised UAP-related language. On June 3rd and June 24th, I reported in detail on Twitter regarding the UAP-related provisions of the original version of the FY 2025 IAA, as reported out by the SSCI on June 3rd. The bill has since undergone some revisions, and the latest revision was filed as a proposed amendment to the FY 2025 National Defense Authorization Act. In many years, but not all, the IAA is merged into the NDAA. When this is done, the final vote in the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate are on combo NDAA, IAA, all sent to the President as a single bill. It appears that this is the path that the Senate and House Intelligence Committee leaders have in mind for the FY 2025 IAA. However, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has not yet announced any timetable for scheduling Senate floor action on the NDAA, which now cannot occur before September at the earliest and might even be delayed past November 5th general election. So far, senators have filed 1,100 proposed amendments to the NDAA, the Round-Schumer UAP Disclosure Act, SA 2610, as I reported on July 13th. The newly revised Senate IAA version includes some tweaks to one of the UAP-related provisions, specifically Section 1003. This is a carryover provision from the enacted FY 2024 bill associated with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. It is a provision that bars funding of intelligence community special access program unless they have been reported to design congressional leaders and committees. The new version expands the list of congressional committees that must be notified. The SSCI reported bill listed the Intelligence Armed Services and Appropriations Committees, 6 committees in all. To that list have been added the House and Senate Foreign Affairs and Homeland Security Committees, in addition to the top 4 congressional leaders. In addition, the latest revision is made specific to funding authorized within the National Intelligence Program, which is defined in current law at 50 USC. I will defer to those with more expertise to comment on any possible substantive effects of those changes. However, at first blush, it seems that the changes may reflect various congressional committees asserting judicial rights and engaging in lane marking. Congressional committees traditionally are vigilant in guarding the parameters of their assigned or claimed jurisdictions. The fiscal 2025 NDAA itself, as reported out by the Senate Armed Service Committee on July 8th, contains a separate but similar limitation, barring funding of unreported UAP programs with the purview of the Department of Defense. However, unlike its IAA counterpart, the FY 2025 NDAA restriction does not contain a subsection covering funding for independent research and development, such as IR&D subsection was part of the corresponding FY 2024 DoD funding limitation. I do not know why it is now absent from the section 1544. So, and if you want to take a look, this is an excerpt from it. This is the actual document itself, and I put in the description as well if you want to read the whole report there. So, all right, I'm going to bring in my man, Pavel. Pavel, okay, we have been talking about this over and over again. Now, what it seems like to me, as I feel the last couple of weeks, has been more and more about Schumer Rounds pushing the bill again, and we've been asking the question how it's going to pass, but it just seems like there's more people, Marco Rubio, more people are trying to make it happen, make it work, lend their voices, try to get it to pass, put the language in there specifically. It seems like, and maybe I'm wrong, it seems like this particular thing is starting to carry some heat behind it. Am I wrong here?
No, you're not. And I also can see how they're trying to conjoin the two bills so the president can sign one. Uh, that's a good strategy, I think, because once they're put together, it is very much more difficult to wash it down as it was last year. So that's a good strategy, I think.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's interesting to say the least, right? Like if how I'm so curious about it. And I do ask that same question that I've been asking about like what is going to be different than everything else, right? I mean, Patrick from Vetted just had on John Stewart. And we were talking. I threw in a super chat and I asked that question, and the same thing. Do you think that it'll happen? What's the difference this time around? And they both said, I don't think there's any difference around. It's the same thing's going to happen. And clearly John Stewart had no clue who I was because he said, "Oh, you're too optimistic about this." I was like, "No, if you watch my freaking show, guy, you'll notice that I've been saying I don't think anything's going to change." But the fact is, I'm with them in that I don't think anything's going to change. But it doesn't change the fact that they're trying everything that they can. Now the question is, are they trying to push things just to get more stuff for the military pushed through? The interesting thing there was that they're probably not going to, this thing isn't going to even go past until we find out who the next president is, which I think is the right play. I think what you don't want to do is say, okay, we're going to make this push. This is going to happen. We're going to do this. And then whoever's in charge goes, no, we don't, the people we're employing that we're going to put in there, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do it that way. And then all that work goes to nothing because the new administration is either not on the same page with these people and it becomes a pushback. So I think waiting it's the same reason why I think we should wait for the hearings. But that doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. It looks like the hearings are going to happen, but because Marco Rubio for a little bit, and you had mentioned this on the show, was kind of silent for a little bit, but it seems like he's putting his voice back out there. And I for this topic, the question I have for you is, when it comes to Rubio, was he being silent about this stuff because he was making his bid at the VP, and the fact that he didn't get it now he's going back in and going, well, I might as well just dive back into this thing.
I would say so, yeah. But I also think that there are multiple people within the Republican Party who have been shown evidence. And if someone from their side has been shown evidence, it would be Senator Rubio, because he has the highest ranking position out of all the Congress people who were involved in this specific UAP effort. So I also think that besides that, his attempt to become a VP, he's also been working behind the scenes. You can tell by this that he's been busy.
Yeah, it seems like it. It seems like he hasn't. Maybe that's the better answer, right? Is that not that he hasn't been silent on it. He just hasn't been public about it, but it doesn't mean he's been silent on it. He could very well be part of the meetings and be part of conversations with things that are happening. And clearly, it's one of the things that I think that, I think most people, that if he was, you want somebody out there in a position, whether it's VP or whatever it is, or that is going to actually try to get this information out there that has a stake in it. And I don't know if any of these people do. I don't know. We still don't know who Harris's running mate is, right? At this time that we're shooting this anyway. Don't know her stance on the phenomenon at all. I guess you said you've heard her kind of talk about it, but not anything in depth. And then
I looked it up though.
Yeah,
she was speaking to Kimmel in one of the interviews.
Hold on. Say that again.
She was speaking to Jimmy Kimmel, and he asked her if when she arrived at the BP position, if she maybe asked for documents of JFK or UFOs, and she said, "Yes, I am very interested in those topics."
Okay.
And she just smiled, and then Jimmy asked a follow up, and she was like, "I'm not giving you any more than that."
Okay. All right. Well, so then we do know. So she's not doing a Christie laughing it off like
she's
a
not.
moron. But we do have, and then we know that Trump has been vocal about it, has talked about how he's been briefed on it. There are people out there. He said himself that he doesn't really believe in it, but he said that there are a lot of people who talk to him that do. But then if you listen to what Ross Coulthart says, that Trump pretty much doesn't want to talk about it because he's in fear of what will happen if he does. I don't know what Vance thinks about it. I have no clue. That's not been one of the things he's talked about. So the people up there that could potentially be in those positions, we don't know really where any of them stand. So we do know where the people in their parties do stand. We know where Luna stands. We know where AOC stands. We know where Schumer stands. We know where Round stands. We know that Burchett stands. We know that Garcia stands. We know that where this bipartisan kind of thing. We know that where they stand. That's the people that you want. But the question is, and like I said, it was getting too partisan leading up to this, where it doesn't. It seemed they were all doing when this thing last year, dude. When it was running, they were all doing interviews together. Now it's like they can't be seen anywhere near one another, and it's like
actually what really struck me about that era that you mentioned was hearing Marco Rubio talking about something very similar to what AOC talked about in terms of the UFOs, because Rubio was like, we got to find out if these objects are real or if there's a lot of people within government that is crazy. And AOC did a live stream once talking about the same thing. She's like, I don't really know if the UFOs are real. I just want to know what they're spending that money on, because it's too much money.
Right. And
I think they should go back to that, though.
I'm wondering if that's where they're going to go with the hearing, right? Because it's like following that trail, because that's where, and I can't remember. I mean, it's just a lot of these kind of conversations, I'm sure to you as well, kind of bleed into one another. But it's like, it does seem that one of the main reasons that they would want to keep this quiet is because of all the people that could potentially either go to jail, or if they've since passed away, their legacies are tarnished, right? Because they were involved in very illegal hush stuff. So it makes total sense of where some people think, well, they don't want the information out there because they're afraid what the American public's going to think, or the world is going to think. And part of that could be true, and maybe is true, but the majority of it is they're trying to cover all the illegal stuff that went down, and not just the stuff of like the obvious stuff of who got hurt, who was silenced, who all that. That's the obvious stuff that you're like, well, yeah, whoever did that, let's put them away forever. But then there's the stuff that you don't really think about, and that's if these private companies were getting the contracts because they were the only ones approached, as opposed to other companies going, well, we would have liked to put a bid in there, and that's the way that it actually works. We can sue you now.
Because you hit the nail in the head right there, man.
Yeah.
This is what's happening, actually. I think that people like Lockheed and Northrop and all these companies, they have power now because none of their leaders are involved in the politics. They're not Congress people. They're private citizens.
Right.
And that's what is giving them the leeway and the ability to keep doing this and the secret programs.
For years.
That's what these bills are trying to do. They're trying to get them out in public so they can respond to what they did.
So then that's why I say what's going to change, because if you're those guys, you're doing everything you can and getting all the crooked politicians that are in your pocket to shush them up, because that's, hey, what am I paying for here? If I'm paying for you to keep that quiet, why are they running this again? So you figure they're going to pull everything, because I do think, and I think there's a lot of people that think this, that there's, as you mentioned, those private companies have way more power than the government in general, and they have way more power than, I mean, they have this, as in Lou's book, the thing was leaked, and other things that people have said, and I think Stephen Greer has said the same thing, that these private companies and the people that have been running these companies have looked upon the president as hired guns. They're there for 4, maybe 8 years, and then that's the next person who we have to make sure they don't know anything about this.
Yeah. And they are briefed on UFOs, but they're not told the whole story.
Right.
Not a chance.
Right. So who knows, man? I think that it does feel that with this particular story that they're making this push, that they're really trying hard to get and put that language out there. But it is one of those, I know that you don't necessarily love talking to politicians and other things on your show, and I respect that. But I think that I would really like to get a majority of these people on this show, because I would like to talk to them about they're not going to give you a straight answer all the way through, but it's I want to know, there's so much I want to know. There's so much I want to know about what is different. What do they gain by doing this in particular? What's the real goal as opposed to the public goal? How do you get this covered by the mainstream media more, because a lot of these politicians, they have their ends with certain reporters and certain things, and there's certain reporters that want to do favors for certain politicians and get them. If you do an interview for me, the politicians could make this more of a public thing if they wanted to by making the right phone calls. It's just they got to pick their moments.
Yeah, and to go back to what Matthew Pines was talking about, if what he says will happen happens, that means one of the biggest people in politics are going to come forward. And if that happens, that's going to change the whole conversation.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, man, I'm getting tired of the if that happens conversation.
Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. Yeah.
I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
I'm bored. I'm bored of it. And I think other people are bored. I'm bored of it. I'm bored of if that happens, wait till that happens. If that footage comes out, wait till this happens. But I'm not, because what seems to happen, and I think you mentioned this yesterday or the day before. What seems to happen is that this happens to a lot of people who are really into this topic, want this stuff to be real, want to be able to talk about it, and then they get discouraged by the information, and then they just flip a switch and turn and say, this is fake.
Yeah.
This is not.
Many of them either rage quit or they turn against the movement.
Which I don't understand, because I think that they feel like they've been duped. Right? They feel like they've been duped or lied to, or you see certain people who used to believe now say, like, there's only one group, and it's that group that wants to have the disclosure out. When you look at the facts of all the stuff that's happened over the last 80 years, that's clearly not the case.
And all over the world. There's a lot of history of UFOs in Spain, in Portugal, in South Africa. There's a lot of history. So
sometimes it seems like somebody got their feelings hurt, and they want to cause crap for the other person. And I think, as I've always said, being skeptical is healthy. Asking questions is healthy.
Necessary.
I'm not anywhere near. I'm more frustrated and less optimistic that we're ever going to get real information than I was before. But it hasn't changed my fact that something shady's going on, and with the cover up, and something shady's going on with information, and there's clearly other stuff happening. All of that, nothing in my opinion has changed that for me. I actually feel the opposite. I feel like the more and more that it's held back and there's not stuff coming out, is the more and more that George Knapp quote of "they are better at their job than we are at ours" comes to start to play into more, because these people know how to play the game. And
I'm gonna be honest with you, Kristian, if I hadn't had my anomalous experiences that I've had over the years, I would be out of this completely, because you're right. Like, it gets frustrating at a certain point. And if I didn't have that confirmation from other witnesses that experienced the same thing I experienced, I would be out. I would be doing sports still,
Yeah. And I understand that completely, man. So it's like, we'll see. I like when these stories pop up, because I do like to see that there's movement on it. And I think that as long as it's like, okay, it's not like they're just like, oh, we completely forgot to put this in there, or maybe we'll try to get the disclosure. They're actively trying to make it work, and there is a game plan, and it seems like the game plan is going to carry on into November, but we'll see. Pavel, thanks for joining us here, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kristian. Have a good one.
What do you think? Is this bill, is it going to happen? Are they going to push this forward? Is it going to happen in November? What do you think? Put your comments in there. I got to hear it. Do you hear what we're talking about? Do you hear how it seems like people are trying to make a push to make this particular thing happen? I throw back to what Steve Bassett said, where I was like, well, if it didn't, and I asked the same thing. I was like, oh, why is it going to happen the next time around? I was like, no, he was adamant. He was adamant that it's going to go through this time. We'll see. But thank you for joining me. As always, make sure you subscribe if you haven't done that already. We're so close to 30,000 subscribers. We're hoping to get there. If you want to support the channel, you can check out one of our sponsors. I'm going to tell you about them right now. Here you go. Have a great weekend. We'll see you soon. This episode of Down to Earth with Kristian Harloff is sponsored by BetterHelp. Let me ask you, what are your self-care non-negotiables? What is it, that you never skip a leg day or therapy day? Because when your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Because even when we know what makes us happy, it is hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. Therapy is very important. I've been in that position, man, when I haven't talked and I've let things bottled up, and it is not a good thing. thing. You got to talk to people. And we've had people on our show that have said, listen, we've needed to speak to people. We had an opportunity to, and BetterHelp has been there for a lot of people very close in my life. Because if you don't know, it's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, it is flexible, and it is suited to your schedule. All you have to do is you fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched with a licensed therapist, and you switch therapists anytime, no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. You got to visit betterhelp.com/DTE today. You get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/DTE. All right, before you get out of here, I got to tell you a good way to save money. And one way to save money is stop spending money on things you don't need. Like apps that you're like, oh, that app's going to be amazing. I'm going to use that app. I'll use it free and I'll never use it ever again. And then they charge you. That's what they do. They charge you every month. Well, that's where Rocket Money comes in. Rocket Money is a great service. It's a personal finance app, and it finds and cancels unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending, and it helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's features. Most Americans think they spend around $62 a month on subscriptions. Yeah, right. The real number is close to $300. That is literally thousands of dollars a year, half of which probably have been forgotten about. So that is why I use Rocket Money, and I absolutely love them. Stop wasting money on things you don't even use. Cancel unwanted subscriptions today. Go to rocketmoney.com/DTE. That's rocketmoney.com/DTE. One more time, rocketmoney.com/DTE.